Hello, it's week 3. Or is it week 4? It's certainly not week 5. I wonder if you can guess what the topic is this week. It's our In Isolation competition from H&DPS Photographic Society. I think it must be week 3. Oh well. For round 3, we welcome our first guest judge, Ruth Wiseman. She's the Houston District Photographic Society Competition Secretary, so she knows a thing or two about images.
Round 3, in my bathroom. I'll begin by saying that I think this is quite a tough theme, but I suppose that's a good thing because it has made us all think. And looking at the images submitted, you've certainly had your thinking caps on. As always, these comments are purely my own views. Photography is subjective and you are at liberty to disagree, but the images in this set are so good it's not been difficult for me to be constructive and positive in my critique. So here goes. Blistering barnacles. Aye aye, Captain. This poor chap's in a spot of bother. The sea's rough, it looks like he's sinking down the plug hole, and as if that wasn't enough, he's about to have to fight off the approaching giant loofah. I think this is great. You've used everyday bathroom objects to create the feeling of disaster at sea, and it really works. Even the look on the face of the model is one of impending doom. Well done. Clean lines. Part of the difficulty in bathroom photography is that there are loads of reflections and highlights. They pop up all over the place. But you've handled both reflections and highlights extremely well here, and the stream of water is just about perfect. If you can't turn that tap off, however, you'll need to find a plumber in to replace the ceramic disc, and in lockdown, good luck with that. I like the way the water fades out at the bottom of the shot. One tiny nitpick, there are a couple of small dots just left of centre that perhaps could have been cloned out. Conch shell. I've tried photographing shells myself and they are unbelievably difficult to get right. In fact, I scrapped all my efforts. The author here has done a really good job. The centre of the conch shell is slightly less sharp, but most of the shell is in strikingly crisp focus. For me, the joy of this shot is not only in the shape, but also in the texture and subtle colours. Look at the base of the shot where the shell is reflected in the worktop and you'll see some beautiful swirling shapes. I like the fact that you have off-centred the shell and you weren't tempted to crop the reflection on the back wall either. "'Cause you're worth it. 3s always work, and they've certainly worked here. The idea of having 2 lipsticks standing up and one on its side makes for a pleasing composition. Similar to the image of the tap, you've dealt with the highlights pretty well. You've decided to keep the image quite dark, even a bit underexposed perhaps, but I think that's the right choice as it helps push distractions, such as the writing on the lipstick case, into the background. Good choice of lipstick colour that has been picked up with an effective keyline around the image. COVID crisis. Oh dear, loo roll shortages yet again. Firstly, I have to say that some of you have very glamorous bathrooms, lovely wallpaper. But on to the image. Whenever we decide to photograph a subject containing straight lines, especially into a corner like this, we have a dilemma over what we keep on the horizontal and what we don't. Personally, I think you've made the right choice here. The loo roll is the subject and you've chosen to keep that horizontal. There's a bit of burnout on the bracket where it attaches to the wall and a mark on the left-hand side in one of the black tiles that perhaps could have been cloned out, but well done on coming up with an image that has both impact and humour. Dancing in the shower. I think we might have seen these models before. This is an extremely creative shot. I have no idea how you did it, but it's full of great ideas. The colouring is super. Fading down from pink into blue gives a feeling of water at the base, and the textures in the shot really work. The grid makes us feel that we're looking through glass, and the texture around the models looks as if it could be a shower screen or curtain. You've even managed to include a touch of sparkly highlights to lift and lighten your creation. It's a very inventive image that ticks a lot of boxes in this round. Dolly takes a bath. Poor Dolly. Can she not have a bath in private? Honestly. Still, she has got the ducks for company and some very pretty bath towels. I like the way you've set this up, although I wonder if slightly different placement of one or two objects might have been worthwhile. For example, how about moving one of the 3 ducks to Dolly's right? And I might have tried it without the 2 bottles of bubble bath, although maybe you thought that corner would have been a little empty. Despite that, it's another good and creative image. Downloading. This shot reminds me of a past colleague who constantly moaned about her husband locking himself in the loo in order to play games on his mobile phone. Personally, I think that ought to be grounds for divorce, but that's another subject. There's a fairly strong highlight on the rim of the basin in this shot, and I do get the feeling of everything being slightly on the wonk, although I realise that's very tricky to overcome when you're taking a wide-angle shot of an interior. But having said that, you've given us a good image, and well done for coming up with such an original idea. Duck Lake. There are so many things to love about this image. First though, I'm going to pick up on a couple of tiny points, the first of which is watch your levels. The image is, to my eyes, very slightly tipping towards the left. The tilt is incredibly slight, but it's accentuated by the inclusion of the tiles at the top, although I understand why you didn't want to crop those out, or you would have lost the top of the shower head with them. The second point relates to the duck on the far left. Because he's a dark colour, he fades into the background. A little more light might have been needed on that side. Perhaps even a piece of white card used as a reflector would have done the trick. However, that doesn't detract from what I think is an excellent shot. You've given some thought as to how the ducks and their fishy friend are lined up, and the subtle reflections are fantastic, almost a picture in themselves. Well done. Feeling flushed. I've heard horror stories about spiders and snakes down the loo, but never what is this animal exactly? It looks like a cross between a koala bear and an extra from Star Wars. I'm pretty sure it's a marsupial of some type, maybe a wombat? Whatever it is, it's looking very comfortable in its watery home. I like the way that the author has obviously given a lot of thought as to what else has been included in the image. The stack of loo rolls is perfect, and the board showing the tide times at Doolin evokes a feeling of being close to the coast. I just hope the poor little wombat, I'm calling him a wombat, whatever he is, has since been rescued. I bet he would have shredded those loo rolls if he was left to his own devices. Seriously though, great shot and well done. Fish out of water. This shows how decorative objects can be made into a pleasing composition. The blues here are, for me, what makes the shot. Not only the darker blue of the ceramic fish, but also the blue tone of the water in the basin. It really wouldn't have worked had you not thought to fill the basin. And I like the inclusion of the fish in the soap dish. You're losing a little depth of field there, so perhaps a slightly smaller aperture would have helped. I do, however, appreciate that in most bathrooms there isn't a lot of light, which makes a higher f-stop difficult. You've handled reflections well too. I did wonder how this would have looked if it were a straight-on shot rather than at an angle. This is from an author with a strong sense of colour coordination. The flannels pick up the colours in the tiles perfectly. You've given thought to how they are folded and arranged, and you've kept a good depth of field throughout. The rendition of colours is also spot on. It's perhaps not as creative as some of the images in this round, but your composition makes for a really pleasing image. If I had one slight criticism, and I'm nitpicking, it's that I think there's a little too much light on the left-hand side, which could easily have been taken down with a graduated filter. Folds. I've got to hand it to you. It would never have occurred to me to make an image out of what I assume is a plastic sponge. You've considered how the folds of the sponge are positioned within the frame, and the colours are wonderful. Your point of focus appears to be over to the right, where the sponge fibres become more separated, and I think that's exactly right, as it provides a point for our eyes to concentrate on. I know the conventional thinking is that deeper colours go to the base and lighter colours to the top, but I like the fact that there are some orange shades creeping into the top right, as I feel they lift and brighten the image. Just one small thing, watch out for artefacts. I can see some breaking up within the folds of the sponge, and I feel that would probably notice a lot more if the image was projected. A lovely image though. Friday night. Another great idea. I'm not sure whether these are masculine or feminine toes, but maybe a spot of nail varnish would make for an even more striking shot. Seriously, there is so much to enjoy in this image. The framed photos on the wall draw our eyes up and the toes draw our eyes down. Some people might see that as a conflict, but I don't personally feel it to be a problem as there are so many things in the middle to look at too. We can wander around this image and find a whole bathroom full of shapes, textures and patterns. I think I might have put both feet on the wooden figure on solid ground, as otherwise it looks as if he's about to dive in and join you in the soap suds. But maybe that was the idea. I might have excluded the edge of the panelling on the left, but otherwise a lovely shot that's been well executed. Hey, wait for me. I have no idea how this was done. It could be that these are stick-on fish, or maybe there is only one fish that the author has duplicated and photoshopped into the image. But that really doesn't matter, does it? What matters is the end result and that it's such a successful result. The background is just what we need, making us think of the deep blue sea. The fish have been placed equidistant, exactly as they swim in a shoal. What makes this image, however, is the poor little chap at the bottom who's obviously got diverted and is now trying to catch up with his mates. The image is darker at the bottom, which gives it a nice solid base. Terrific. I really enjoyed this one. Just posing. The model has a great expression that sums up the title of this image. Together with her cosy and swimming hat, she captures a 50s feel of being by the sea. Perhaps not the most creative of our entries, and maybe a tiny bit soft on focus, but somehow for me that fits the subject. In this instance, I'd prefer soft focus to a perfectly sharp image that's smattered with highlights. You've handled the exposure nicely, and I enjoy the angle you've selected. Love a new one. Well, I'm not sure if this is the new one or if you're wanting a new one, but it looks like a pretty sturdy toothbrush to me. And having a good toothbrush has never been more important than when all the dentists are closed. You've really focused in on the bristles of the toothbrush in what is almost a macro shot. A good choice. I think that's far more effective than just giving us a detailed shot of the toothbrush in its entirety. There are some artefacts creeping in, which may be as a result of over-sharpening, which is something to watch, but great colours and a well-chosen angle for this type of image. Nearly empty. I believe I read recently that Cath Kidston was about to go into administration, so unless you have a stockpile of this type of hand cream, you're unlikely to get any more. For me, there are two things that make this image stand out. The first is the fact that the tube is all scrunched up and we can enjoy the many folds in the metal. And the second is the lovely coloration. You've been clever in picking up similar colours in your background but muting them down so as not to detract from the main subject. Standing the tube on its lid is exactly the right thing to do, as not only does it allow us to read the words without tilting our heads, but it also makes the most of all those glorious creases in the tube itself. Very well done. Oh, to be beside the sea. We started with a fisherman adrift in rough seas, and I wonder if these are a few of his mates back on the shore. I can't help feeling a little concerned about the duck. No wonder he looks down in the mouth, or should that be down in the beak? He's lost his leggies, poor chap. But at least he's got some company. No social distancing here, it looks like quite a party. I wonder if a slightly different camera angle to present us with more of a straight-on shot would have helped iron out the sloping grout lines of the tiles. But I do appreciate the bathrooms are usually small and places to stand are therefore limited. I do feel, though, that the placement of all the elements in this image has been well thought out. Or the duck gets it. Clearly someone has been in lockdown too long. But don't worry, I'm sure it's possible to get therapy whilst maintaining social distancing. I'm guessing, and I may be completely wrong, that this is a straight shot, in other words, not a composite, in which case another member of your household must have been very compliant in its making. I like the inclusion of the little dog watching on in alarm from the back wall. It's a very original entry and technically good. You've managed to avoid strong highlights, and I like the inclusion of a dark vignette, which adds to the sinister feel of the shot. Although perhaps I ought to be careful using the word shot here. I can only hope no ducks were harmed in the taking of this image. Paddling duck. I think we've seen these lovely bathroom tiles before. This time you've ditched the flannels and got a duck and a fish to pose for you instead. The exposure is good and you've managed to position the duck so that it is reflected in the tap, much better than having the photographer reflected in the tap. Although the duck appears to be in the basin, I'm not sure we can see that he's paddling as we can't see any water, but we get the feel of what you are trying to convey. You've done well in keeping your horizontals level and it's a nicely composed shot. Reflecting the essentials. This is another one that looks like it could be a bathroom brochure shot, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. It reflects the essentials. In the lower of the two taps you can see the reflection of a loo and what I believe to be the edge of a basin. Oh, and not forgetting that all-important loo roll. I'm sure this was a tricky shot to take as you must have had a lot of highlights to deal with. The exposure is excellent, with nothing burnt out, not even in the window, which is the very brightest part of the image, and it appears to be sharp on the main subjects, i.e. the taps. There's a slight smear underneath the bottom tap. I'd complain to the housekeeper if I were you. Reflections. You can't have a bathroom theme without getting several shots containing reflections, and this is another one, although completely different to the one we've just seen. The author has given us an almost abstract composition in which it's quite difficult to make out all the elements, but I don't think that matters. We don't need to understand everything in an image to enjoy it. I'm not so sure about the upside down writing, however. Of course, that's inevitable if you want to include any sort of product label in a reflected image, but for me it has the effect of wanting to twizzle my head upside down to read it, and I bet all of you are doing the same. There are a few very bright highlights, but I like the swirling circle in the centre of the image and the patterns created by the reflecting tiles. Run that bath, I'm on the way. This is from someone with a really strong colour sense, to say nothing of a well-stocked bathroom. What a fabulous arrangement of colours and shapes. We almost have a rainbow of colours here, and putting the tallest jar in the centre gives not only a focal point, but also a sense of superiority and hierarchy among its companions. Both highlights and shadows have been handled very well indeed, and the edges of the image have been vignetted enough but not too much. The background colour sets off the bottles and their contents, and the reflections in the foreground are gloriously subtle. I could see this advertising Lush or a similar brand. This is definitely one of my favourites. Self-portrait. Very clever use of a shower tap to reflect your image. You've positioned the brand name plate in exactly the right place so that although we see you, we don't see your camera. The shiny chrome reflects part of your bathroom too, and that allows us to get more of a sense of place than we would if there was just you in the reflection. Nothing's burnt out, there are no glaring highlights, and the image is sharply in focus. If I had to nitpick, I think I would have arranged it so that the temperature control was pointing at exactly 12 o'clock, but that's the OCD in me coming out. Again, not one of the most creative in this set, but still a very accomplished shot. The bathroom buddy. Oh, so cute. The overall feel of this image is one of softness. It's about the softness of the cat's fur and the lovely texture created by the myriad of tiny droplets on the glass behind. The soap in the dish has been softened down so that we don't have any hard edges, and as if it wasn't already beautifully soft enough, we've got some aloe vera hand cream to finish it off nicely. The colours are gorgeous, especially the greeny blue behind the cat, which is echoed in the light blue of the scrunchie on the shelf. And don't forget the nail brush. It introduces a further texture, but again it's been softened so that it doesn't jar. I suppose if I had to find something wrong, I'd say that we might want to see a little more light in the cat's face, but I'm really clutching at straws. It's beautiful. The great big scary spider in the bath. For those of you who don't already know, I hate spiders. It's one of the very few things I'm girly about. I can cope with mice, rats, snakes and the majority of creepy crawlies, but spiders, no way. And you forced me to look at this humongous spider for some considerable length of time. First of all, I feel I must point out that the image is wrongly named. It's not a great big scary spider, there are 3 of the blighters. There's the spider, obviously, then there's the equally scary reflection, and there's another smaller reflection in the plug. Yuck! Okay, now that I've just about managed to get a grip, onto the image. It's well exposed, but I feel you've lost a little detail on the body of the spider. I can't see the photographer in the reflection, which means you chose your camera angle well. Unless you have a pet spider, I have to presume this was making the most of an opportune moment, and in view of the fact that you would have had to set this up and take the shot quickly, I think you've done well. The windowsill. What a beautiful orchid, and what a tidy windowsill. I think I may have either rearranged the cables from the electric toothbrushes or removed the stands altogether, but with that slight picky point aside, it's a lovely image that's perfectly exposed. The shells in their glass jar are especially well handled, with not a hint of highlight. We can see a tiny bit of reflection from the orchid petals in the window behind, and that's a perfect addition. I may have cropped the right hand side a weeny bit to get rid of the white window frame, but that's another really tiny point. Overall, an extremely well composed image that's technically spot on. Towel and radiator. Isn't it amazing how simple everyday things can be so delightful when handled in this way? The draping of the towel, the softness of the image, the colour range selected, and the degree of the rail that has been included or not included all make this a beautiful shot. You've managed to bring out the brightness of the top 4 rails and make the bottom 3 recede a little, which is very clever. I can't help wondering if you spent ages getting the towel draped in exactly the right way, or whether it just happened. No matter which, it's the overall simplicity of this shot that appeals to me. It's a bit of a cliche to say it's a photographer's shot, but it's the sort of shot that would only be taken by someone who with an artistic flair and someone who knows what they're doing when it comes to camera skills. As you probably guessed, I really like it. Wish you were here. How appropriate for lockdown. I, for one, wish I was there, wherever there happens to be. In fact, anywhere would do. We're all going stir crazy. But on to the image. I expect this is one of those superbly decorated pieces of ceramic that you bought on holiday somewhere, or perhaps was bought for you, and which brings back good memories. You've chosen to give us a straight-on shot and put it bang in the centre, which I think is exactly the thing to do for this type of subject. It's not the most inventive among our entries, but it's a very pleasant image to end with, and the exposure is perfect. It has been very difficult to choose just one winning image, as there were a lot here that I felt were strong contenders. I ended up with a shortlist of the following 4, all of which could have easily been winners. Feeling Flushed, for its sheer originality and thoughtful composition. Nearly Empty, for having such a great idea executed so well. Run That Bath, I'm on the Way, for its composition, colour and technical skill. Towel and Radiator, for its beautiful softness and simplicity. But in the end, I had to go for Run That Bath, I'm on the Way. All of us who have tried still life photography know that it's a lot harder than it looks. To me, this is close on perfect in terms of its composition and technical detail, and the explosion of colour gives it a real wow factor. So congratulations to the author of Run That Bath, I'm on the Way, Roger Cuthbert.
So that's it for week 3. Many thanks to everyone that entered, and especially to Ruth for her judging and her comments, especially from me. And also I should say thank you to Maud May, who once again was kind enough to read out Ruth's comments as our commentator this week. Stay tuned, there's some bloopers following, and don't forget to join next week's competition. Take care, everyone.
Hello, Roger Cuthbert here. It's week 3.
You can probably guess what the competition is called this week. It's in my bathroom. Hello, Roger Cuthbert here. It's week 3 of our coronavirus ID in isolation competition. No, it's not. It's week 4. Take 2. Hello, Roger Cuthbert here. It's week 4 of our in isolation competition, and I wonder if you can guess what the subject is this week from the clues following. Take 3. Hello, Roger Cuthbert here. Houston District Photographic Society in isolation competition, week 4. I bet blur. Take 5. Hello, Roger Cuthbert here. It's week 5 of our Houston District Photographic Society in isolation competition. I wonder if you can guess what the theme is this week.
Hey, wait for me. I have no idea how this was done. It could be that these are stick-on fish, or maybe there is only one fish. I can't take it seriously.
What's the matter now?
Oh, sorry.
Go again.
I've got the giggles now. No. Oh dear, I think it's because it's all bathrooms and loo rolls and plastic fish and sponges and things. Okay, I'm composing myself. I haven't. I'm having a glass of water, sip of water. I think it's stick-on fish. I'm not going to say it without laughing. Stick-on fish. They just stick-on fish. They stick on tiles. People do that. They decorate their tiles with stick-on fish. It's fine. Okay.
Ready?
Hey, wait for me. I have no idea how this was done. It could be that these are stick-on fish, or maybe there is only one fish that the author has duplicated. I had it then and you made me laugh. I'm not ready.
Right, I paused.
Is it called corpsing? It always seems like a terrible word to use. It is, isn't it?
I think you're doing really well as well.
I was doing really well.
Nothing wrong at all.
No, and then it was you, and then I had it, and then that was
No,
it.
you did the stick-on fish.
Yeah, and then I had it, and then you did it.
You started with the stick. I was facing the other way to do a thing.
No, you did, because your body was moving.
I was breathing.
Yeah, no, that's not allowed, especially because you smell. Right, okay.
Ready?
Let's get through this one.
Right.
Sorry, I need to do that again. That was terrible. Oh, can I do that again? Sorry.
That's it, folks. See you on the next one.